Hi, this is Nick Lalonde, your host of What's Next, making your third act your best act. Today you're going to hear from Tim Kahler. Tim has had an amazing career with a focus in sales. He worked his way up in different sales roles until he founded his own dietary supplement company and sold it to a strategic buyer back in 2009. Since then, he serves as a partner and chief sales officer for his new company. When he's not working his main gig, he provides analytics support to a very successful D1 college football program in town. What stuck out to me in my conversation with Tim is retirement wasn't created with him in mind. He has a goal to always be working and contributing until he's no longer physically and mentally able. Be sure to listen in when Tim talks about his views on retirement. I hope you'll enjoy my conversation with Tim as much as I did. Tim, thank you so much for coming on to the show, What's Next, making your third act your best act. And I'm really excited to dive deeper today with what's next for you. Would you mind just sharing with folks that are listening what you do as a career now?
Okay. Chief sales officer and partner with an events entertainment media company. That's kind of was the full-time gig and still is. And then on the side, I do analytics and pregame planning for a top Division I football team. And then I also do consulting in the cryptocurrency area. And then I do a lot of day trading on my own also.
How did you get into so many of these side gigs or passions that you're working on besides just being a partner in your own company?
Well, it originally wasn't by choice. I started phasing back from the full-time work position due to some health issues. I had a couple issues, one being it's gastroparesis, which at times got very severe where I couldn't work full-time necessarily to make appointments, to go to gatherings, to events, those things. So I had to change my approach to work to where I could be home when I needed to. Do things via Zoom. Fortunately, the technology helped me with all that. We were in a day when if you're not there, you can be there, so to speak. So that was part of the transition. I've always done some different things. I had an interest in football. I had an interest in personal training. I did some strength and conditioning for a Big Ten team. And then they started to realize maybe I had some analytic, mathematical and football knowledge combined. So it led into a position doing side analytics, which parts of the times of the year get to be full-time, parts of the time are no time. And then the cryptocurrency consulting, again, I knew someone, I was investing in it. I just networked and some people said, hey, would you help us with these projects or do this research or come up with this? So that opportunity kind of presented itself. So I took advantage of that. So, and I've done other consulting short-term jobs on and off.
So going back to the consulting for a Big Ten team, I know you're out of Columbus. If I had to guess, based on how the national championship played out earlier this week, you weren't thrilled, correct?
Actually, I was. Between my two stints with the Buckeyes, I had a stint with the Wolverines, and that was just years ago. So was very familiar with a lot of the players, the staff. So we won a Big Ten champion. There is the game, and the rivalry is probably the best in all of sports. But by the same token, having relationships at both. I wanted a Big Ten team to win it. It helps our conference. It helps our strength of schedule. It helps the rivalry. It helps everything. So actually, I was very pleasantly, very, very happy that the Wolverines pulled it off.
That is the most diplomatic response that I've ever heard as a rival. So kudos to you, sir. I don't know that I'd say the same. I went to Kentucky. I don't know I'd say the same about the Louisville Cardinals. So so I'm curious. So your health really forced you to pull back with what you were doing today. So working in an executive role as a partner in your company. And then two, you're 60 years old. How has that impacted how you think and approach retirement?
Well, it's impacted it in a number of ways. I with the health condition, I realized that I wasn't invincible up until I had that. I felt I worked out a lot. I didn't get sick. I felt fairly invincible, and it made me feel a bit of invincibility and kind of accept that, the future isn't always going to be the same. There's going to be a time when maybe out of necessity, maybe out of desire, that I'm going to want to step back from things and find maybe my own little path. And so the health conditions played into it, but in the long term, you have to look at everything. Although I have a couple other health conditions that have developed since then, I found that it doesn't do a lot of good to complain and worry about them. You just figure out, okay, this is what I'm going to deal with. I'm going to do the best I can. I know that somebody out there, many people have it worse than me, so it could be worse. So, I accept it, I work with it, and then I try to work around it and use the strengths and technology and things to move forward, knowing that, okay, I might have a rough situation due to a couple of these conditions, but again, it could be worse, and it's something that I can use and go forward and use it as experience. It's made me stronger. In other words, fighting a couple of the issues that I do have made me stronger from the standpoint of determination, persistence, just overall mental attitude. I'm a much tougher than I was when I was younger from that standpoint.
Mm, mm. Do you see yourself doing some of these side gigs and working indefinitely? Do you think there's a date where you would just step away from work altogether?
No. I will always do something. And until there's a time when, maybe physically or mentally I can't. But right now I need to do something. There's always yard work my wife reminds me of. And there's things the to-do list around the house. But outside of that, I just need to be working, doing something, feel productive, feel like I'm contributing to some team somewhere or contributing something to somebody, whether it's help them start their business, run their business, have business ideas, or a company be more successful, a football team be more successful, all those kind of things that I can help someone else be more successful. And that just makes me feel that much more successful.
Yeah. Sounds like it's a good way to avoid the honey-do list as well, if you have enough going on.
Well,
but I
don't try to avoid it. I just don't want to spend all my time on
it. So I'm curious though, why is that so important to you? I mean, what I'm hearing is helping others improve, being part of a team. I mean, why are all these things so important to you that you would do them indefinitely until you just physically and mentally couldn't?
Just because you're given certain talents and abilities in life, and God had given those to me, and I'm to maximize to the best of my potential. And so I want to continue to be using those in whatever manner it might be. And I just need to feel like I have a purpose, that I'm needed somewhere. I mean, my family provides that. And then I have a hierarchy of faith, family, health, fitness, and then the career comes after that. But it gives me that feeling of something to do, something to focus on. It's again, I'm not a 7-day-a-week golfer, and I've got some buddies that are getting the retirement phase, and that's kind of their plan. And I can't focus on that one thing like that. I've got to focus on something that is, I don't know if you would call it business related, but something that's team focused, and that I'm part of a team, and that I can see a contribution that I make.
So it's so interesting as I hear you talk, because it sounds like traditional retirement really wasn't made for someone like you. It sounds like you have some buddies that can golf 7 days a week and they love it. But for you, you couldn't fathom a world where you're just golfing 7 days a week. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. We will do traveling. I spend a lot of time with the grandkids, and I have 2 grown daughters that live within 10 minutes of us. We're blessed in that manner. So I spend a lot of family time, but, I I spend my time at my workouts, and that's my alone time or my me time. But outside of that, I need another focus to really, I guess, just feel connected. Um,
Mm.
not that I don't feel connected with my friends or my family, but I've always had an additional connection somewhere outside of that I contributed to.
Mm. Mm. So when I say the word retirement, what thoughts or feelings come to mind?
Again, excitement, apprehension, fear, joy. There's the positive things about knowing that you will have some freedom to do what you want when you want. There's anticipation. There's a little bit of fear in, am I going to feel good that I'm contributing somewhere? That I'm doing something. And the anxiety, anxiousness, anticipate, or some of those things are just the unknown. I've never been in my life somewhere where I didn't have a full time or multiple positions where I was counted upon to deliver, and I just feel like without that, I'm probably not going to be completely fulfilled. I'll need that part of my life. It may not need to be as big a part as it has been over the 40 years of well, I've worked for more than 40 years, but all the years of work, but it will need to be a part.
Mm. So when you think about retirement, is retirement the way you define it? Is it stepping away from your company and being a partner and serving as an executive? Is that how you would define retirement? And then maybe even moving into some of these side gigs that you have out there?
Yeah, when I guess when I was younger, I always looked at retirement, and I just hit the sole definition of it to me was leaving full-time work and not doing anything. That's kind of what I thought of retirement was. And then as I've grown older, I realized there's fortunately for me, there's a lot of options in retirement, and there's different forms of retirement, and it takes upon itself all different aspects for different people. Some people say they're retired, but they probably work more now than they did when they were younger because they don't have kids, to take the ball games and sporting events and do homework with at night. So I've realized that there's so many opportunities. And I guess what I've come to believe now is that retirement is basically the ability to do what you want, when you want, and feel the way you want. In other words, feel needed, feel that you're contributing, have flexibility in your schedule to see the grandkids, have flexibility to travel, but still get, all the aspects of life into one, but having more control rather than work having control over me or over yourself.
Mm. Well said. Sounds like you've thought a lot about retirement and what it's supposed to mean for you, because I do find that some people love retirement, some don't, but most people think of retirement. If I were to ask them to explain retirement to me, they would say, "Oh, it's just a endless vacation, right? It's traveling, it's not working." But your version of retirement is being able to do what you want when you want, and I think that's so valuable that you have clarity around that. I'm curious though. I find before people feel like they can hit, so really financial independence is what I think most people are after in this generation. Um, have you looked at the numbers? Do you know when enough is enough for you? Because obviously, the longer you delay
Mhm.
retirement, right, the bigger the numbers get. And I was talking to someone just a couple of days ago, and he said, "Nick, is it ever enough?" And I think that's a really good point, right? Some people work until they drop dead because it's never enough. But I find the people who find true happiness in this next phase of life is when they know when enough is enough. Have you done any planning around that or thought about that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, enough again, that's a very good thought. Who expressed that to you is there a never enough? And I know people like that and great people, high achievers, but they're never really going to be satisfied with a certain point. Is 100 million enough? Is 200 million enough?
Mm-hmm.
There's just, once they get some, they want more and more and more. And what I've realized is I actually have enough. So I'm not striving necessarily, not that I'm not looking to, or I wouldn't be doing some of the things with investments in cryptocurrency to bring in additional income or secure things for the future. But there's less pressure from that standpoint. The only pressure I put on now is the pressure I put on myself. And I can, and that's one of the things maybe I like the trading and those aspects and in the football is there are measurable results. And so, financially, it's enough now, but could it be more? Sure. Should it be more? I'd love it to be, but I want it to be on my terms. And, I'm not looking to, my kids are going to be well taken care of. My wife's going to be well taken care of. If something happens to me, we can do what we want when we retire. So now it's just a matter of, my wife's not retired yet. She's going to be retired in 4 years. She's a teacher.
Mm.
And her vision of retirement's different from mine. I've asked her, and she doesn't really have a plan. She just, when you're dealing with great elementary school kids, you just need a break when you need a break. And so I'm sure after a few months or a year or whatever time it is, she's going to say, well, I need to do something, because she doesn't like to just sit around like me. Like I am the same way. So, so I think she'll come to that same recognition. So retirement for me, years ago, I used to think, well, there was a solid number. I have to have this much, and I have to have, this much coming from, whether it's a pension, whether my 401k, whether, and I've kind of gotten to the point where I don't focus on that as much. Not that the upturns and downturns in the market don't concern me or excite me. It's just that I don't believe I need. I know that if something happens to me, my wife's taken care of, my family's taken care of. And if something doesn't happen to me, we can enjoy retirement and do what we want when we want. And if she doesn't want to work, she doesn't have to after retirement. If she just wants to do nothing and just have fun, that's fine. So again, it's not so much the money. I just need to feel like I'm contributing, and I'm considering starting a charity or a foundation, and trying to phase into that. I'm in the beginning stages of planning and the 501(c) formation and different things. But that's something that I may end up working full time when I'm in retirement. And that's just a matter of a charitable basis.
I think you're so right. It's important to go into retirement with a plan. So you mentioned that your wife, right, she'll retire in 4 years. And
Yes.
so for her, you said, hey, she doesn't really have a plan yet. It sounds like you've thought a lot about this, about what your plan is going to be. And you're really clear on what work gives you today, right? That's one of the questions I always like to ask people is what does work provide me outside of money in financial security? And so I've heard you talk through needing to feel like you're contributing, right? That's the overarching theme that I'm hearing. Would you mind walking me through, though, what a typical day in retirement might look like for you? And let's just take Tuesday, for instance. So what time are you waking up? How are you spending that day? What time are you going to bed?
If I'm not at a full-time position and I'm doing maybe some, well, I'll call side gigs or things that I'm doing now, I'm probably up about 4. And I take any medicine, my dietary supplements, spend an hour organizing my day, looking at email, looking at the markets, analyzing investments, doing that from about 5:15 roughly till about 7:30. I'll work out, so just a little over 2 hours. Clean up. I have post-workout meal, breakfast, and then get back to probably doing some trading, looking at what I'm going to do for the day. Am I going to do I have any meetings for consulting or a side position? And then find out what my wife has planned. So it may be a full day of just working at the computer, day trading and talking to other traders. And there's some groups that I'm part of for trading. It may be having some meetings down at the football center if I'm doing that as a gig. I mean, Tuesdays is when we put in the game plan for the coming week. So it depends on the time of the year. And then depending on, the grandkids age, the time of the year in the summer, probably would go see them on an average Tuesday, maybe take them to the park, do something like that. If it's a school year, maybe we'd pick them up from school, take them home, or we'll bring them over, have dinner here with them, so my daughter and son-in-law can finish work, get things done, and then they can come and pick them up afterwards. So we get to see them, and they also get some extra time. So the day could be a variety of things. If my wife would like to go to a museum, if she would like to go somewhere, then we'll do that. If not, I will put in extra time trading and doing things. So I will stay busy. I may have some yard work, some to-do list stuff to do, and I'll make sure that gets taken care of. And then in the evening, my wife and I will have dinner, and we may watch some TV together. I may watch a sporting event, and bedtime. I'm earlier than I used to be, but I probably I've gotten into a bad habit of watching and then falling asleep to TV and then getting up and going to bed. So I probably fall asleep about 11 o'clock and wake up about 12:30, go to bed, and then get up at 4 the next morning and start it over again.
Tim, I think your spirit animal is the Energizer Bunny, because the fact that you're getting up at 4 a.m., right, and that you go to bed at 11 p.m., I mean, you're getting in a full day when most retirees are just now waking up, in some cases in retirement, right?
Yeah.
So that's truly incredible. I'm curious. I want to go back to just some of the feelings and thoughts that come to mind when you think about retirement. And it was a mixed bag, right? There was apprehension, there was excitement. Would you mind if we just dive a little bit deeper into that?
No.
What's really exciting you? So when you think about this extra time, I mean, what just fires you up?
Freedom and the ability to control my own time, my own work environment, what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with. So a lot of freedom, my own control, and the maybe the release of burdens that I might have had earlier in my life, that mortgages and college tuition coming up, and weddings, and all those things that you're thinking of, that you've gone by, at least for the kids, maybe not the grandkids, but there's that freedom of just knowing, okay, I've done these things. I don't have a big burden. I don't have a mortgage. I don't, whatever it might be. And the control, I don't have to show up at an office at 7:30 in the morning and stay there till 6:30 at night anymore. I'm free to go where I want, when I want.
So it sounds like there's all upside with making this transition, but you also mentioned apprehension, right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of fear that I heard. So walk me through that. What scares you when you think about this transition?
The I need to learn how to accept not being in charge of everything. My wife will tell you that. But by that I mean, I've managed people for a lot of years. I've managed businesses, run businesses, started, sold businesses. So I've always I've reported to people, but I've had more people reporting to me. And so I need to kind of learn to, and I've always worked in group atmospheres. So whether they were people that hired me and I was part of a large corporation, or people I hired in my own company, or a mix, I've always been part of a group. And so there's an apprehension is for me in how am I going to handle, or how do I create my own groups and stay in groups and contribute to groups, and not just kind of be a lone wolf, so to speak. I want to make sure I keep that connection, and I feel like I will be able to do that. But there's a little apprehension in stepping away from that, stepping away from the full-time stuff. It's not the apprehension of the law of the reduction or loss of income or those things. It's the loss of the contribution, the teamwork, and that anxiety is, I need to have that. I was in sports when I was younger, So there's always this team drive in me. So that would be a little bit of an anxious feeling is, am I going to be able to fulfill that need as I move forward?
Have you seen anyone that lacks that teamwork atmosphere or the community in retirement that maybe is struggling as a result of feeling lonely or no longer part of a group?
Yes, yes. There's a couple people I know who have struggled with that, and I've talked to them about it. And so I know that it can be a big challenge. Some people get very, very, and I don't mean this about them personally as a negative thing, but people do get wrapped up and create their identity in instead of who they are, it's what they do.
Mm.
And that can be a very, I mean, it can be a great thing, but it can also be a very dangerous thing from the standpoint of when they walk away, they feel like they lose their identity and they really struggle. Whereas you think, oh, it's great, they're no longer the partner at the law firm and this or the head of this corporation. Well, when leaving that, they felt like they left their identity, and there can be a depression, there can be a lot of mental health struggles, and just a lot of struggles in general in how to replace that, and how to rebuild that identity or find the true identity.
Tim, you've given us so many nuggets today. I mean, I've loved our conversation, but I do have one more question for you.
Sure.
So you've had a long, successful career. You've done a lot of different things at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done different in your career?
Um, well, there's a couple things. When I was in college, I had a set of brothers that were in my business law class, and this was in the early '80s, and they were starting a computer company out of their mom's garage. And they said, "Hey, you want to come run sales for us and help us start this company, but you're going to have to go to school part-time, and we're going to have you work full-time. It's going to be a lot of hours, but we really think this is going to take off." So I, uh, I felt pretty good about it, but then my father said, "You mean you're gonna quit college?" I said, "No, I'm gonna go part-time." He goes, "Nobody quits. Nobody goes part-time. They quit." And so I didn't take the opportunity. The person who did take the opportunity um, eventually sold their share of the company for, well, it was a little less than $1 billion.
Oh.
Uh, it became a very renowned computer company, PC company. So that was one thing that now I don't want to say that I don't regret it. It's just one of those things I would have liked to known how that would have gone. It probably would have given me the financial freedom, even though I have some now that I don't have. So that would be probably the one thing. And the only other thing would be um, I had a buddy in 2013 tell me about this Bitcoin thing. And he put $1,000 in, which I thought was totally ridiculous. Said, "Well, just put 500 in. Just put 100 in." And I said, "No, this isn't going to be anything." So obviously, he ended up with a couple hundred million before he got out. So $1,000 investment then would have been pretty good. So those are two things that stand out as I would like to have known what happened if I did those, but things turn out well. They turn out everything has a purpose, and things happen for a reason. And God has a plan for me, and those things weren't in the plan, and so He has other plans, and that's what I like about the daily life and retirement. He'll have a plan for me, so I'm not concerned. He'll make it work for me, or He'll help me make it work. But those would be the only two things I look back and say, "Gee, I wonder what if."
Tim, what a great approach to life, right? Sounds like you go through life without fear, knowing that God has a plan for you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm glad that was part of his plan today because I got a lot out of our conversation.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Have a great rest of your day, sir.
You too. Take care.